Joining us to unpack the legal, political, and strategic dimensions of this transformation is Ms. Ginger Chapman, a lawyer and political analyst based in Washington. Good evening to you, Ms. Ginger. And let me here start by asking, what's your legal assessment of Trump's executive order to rename the Department of Defense to the Department of War? And can a president do this unilaterally?
Well, thank you, Mona, for having me here today, and greetings to your viewers. And once again, this is an example of President Trump's overreach. He is very reactionary, and Trump is very concerned with theatrics, appearance. He loves these big, bold, dramatic moves. However, unfortunately, this is more of a political assertion by President Trump. It is known that under our laws, Trump cannot change the name of the Department of Defense to the Department of War. Historically, the Department of War was started by one of our founders, George Washington, but after World War II, Congress changed the name from the Department of War to the Department of Defense. And they did this because it was more palatable for the American people, because we do not view ourselves as aggressors. Our founding principles are to have peace with all, free trade with all, and enmity or hatred towards none. And changing the name from the Department of Defense to the Department of War seems to mark a shift in President Trump's thinking, showing Trump is no longer the candidate Trump who campaigned on ending wars, bringing peace, hoping for a Nobel Peace Prize, and now changing to the Department of War seems to indicate that he views our American military hegemony, our expansionist, our bullying and intimidation of the world as something that should be entrenched in our bureaucracy. This is not something the American people will like or appreciate. And also, for us, this shows that he is focused on completely wrong, irrelevant issues. Mm-hmm. And we are also angry because Trump's cabinet picks do not align with his push for peace. Indeed, the American people are viewing his personnel and his cabinet picks as repeating some of the same mistakes in his first term. However, in his first term, he picked cabinet members that were part of the deep state and allowed them to push out all of his earlier selections. Now it appears Trump has picked people for their loyalty to him as opposed to their qualifications and competence for the job they are supposed to carry out. A great example is Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth. The American people want a Secretary of Defense who is mature and who can fulfill the role of advising the president of risks and dangers associated with military action. The Secretary of Defense is supposed to say, Mr. President, if we do this, here are the costs and the potential risks and loss of life and treasure on the part of the American people. Mm-hmm. Instead, what we have are cabinet members who act as cheerleaders. They view Trump as their father, their daddy, who is not to be corrected or to give input, but rather that they cheerlead his decisions and carry them out without any thought for the implications or for the responsibilities of their office. Mm. So now we see Pete Hegseth, instead of offering a sober, realistic assessment of the dangers to America because of our military involvement in Ukraine, in the Middle East, in Taiwan, Hegseth is talking to the troops. He is not showing that he is a commander. He is showing that he is a buddy, a friend of the troops. And he is engaged in Christian outreach and proselytizing and essentially a a cheerleader or a morale booster for the soldiers in uniform. This is not what they need. They do not need a friend or a cheerleader. They need a strong commander who will keep them out of harm's way and only risk their lives when there is a threat to America and America needs to be defended.
Right,
Instead,
but Ms. Chapman, here President Trump said America only won wars under that name. So does history support that claim or ignore the era of nuclear deterrence and Cold War diplomacy?
Yes, you are correct, Mona. This is a very tricky and delicate time for not just the United States, but our allies and our adversaries. We see that Trump appears to have no depth of understanding as to what he needs to be done, what he needs to do. He wants to be liked. He appreciates the flattery. So what he does is he strings our partners along. A great example is the European Union. He sat in on he attended by video conference the meeting that the European Union leaders, NATO, had with Zelensky just a few days ago. And he told them, instead of saying to them, we are not in a position to give security guarantees to Ukraine. Indeed, only Russia can guarantee Ukraine's security at this point. However, Trump appears to make them think that we will be behind security guarantees. We will offer air support, surveillance, reconnaissance. However, all of these just dig the United States deeper. Trump does not have the capacity to put his foot down and to walk away rather than stringing our partners along, appearing to make promises. And he is now saying we cannot offer security guarantees to Ukraine. Perhaps we can continue this land swap. But the end result is Trump is causing more chaos by not being clear with what American capabilities are.
But here what you're saying, Ms. Chapman, is that he's giving promises that he cannot fulfill. This is what you said, right? But here we're speaking about different issues. We're speaking about him wanting to change or return the name of the Department of Defense to the Department of War. Now, how might this name change affect America's global image, particularly in allied nations that view the U.S. as a stabilizing force, not one that is for dominance, or a force that is going behind dominance?
Yes, you are exactly correct. Names are important. They signal our intentions. And our previous stance as Americans was that we will defend the defenseless. We will protect the innocent. We will be a voice for democracy. And instead, what we are seeing, our recent path is a renewed military hegemony, a renewed aggression, and indeed a might makes right stance. This is opposed to American principles, and this is what the changing the name to the Department of War signals. And indeed, Trump had a military parade in June, which was meant to create a sense of patriotism and pride on the part of the American people. This was also viewed as a stealth show of force, perhaps to bolster our image as a bully, as having power and dominance over other countries. And it appears Trump is going further down this path. Perhaps he is egged on by events in the Middle East, where Netanyahu is pushing the United States to become more active, to put in our Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, where we just have mercenaries in Gaza carrying out the wishes and the orders of the IDF. We see Trump is putting our soldiers under the command of other leaders, which is anathema. This is completely against American principles. And by the way, it is also illegal. And we do see Trump is skirting the edges of legality once again with changing the name to the Department of War. Only Congress can do this. And this sends a signal to the world that Trump wants to use our military for dominance. However, this is not what the American people want, and we are not capable of this.
Yes,
Our
let
military.
me hear Ms. Chapman raise a big question mark here. Now, President Trump has accused China, Russia, and North Korea of conspiring against the United States. But how about the other, or China, Russia, North Korea, and other even countries, when they hear that he wants to change the name of the Defense Department to the War Department? And here I have to quote the Secretary Pete Hegseth, who emphasized a return to lethality and warrior ethos. Now, how do those cultural signals land inside the military and the Pentagon, and how does this reflect also on the other states who are hearing such statements?
Well, this, in a sense, it pleases the one branch of the Pentagon, the Department of Defense, that is ruled by the military-industrial complex. Their only goal is to amplify conflicts wherever we find them so that we can then sell weapons and destabilize the area and eventually take over. And there is another branch of the American military and our Congress that looks at this with alarm. The American military, we are a naval maritime power, and Trump is writing checks that our military cannot cash. Our military analysts are examining very closely the military parade that President Xi had on September 3rd. They're examining the soldiers, their synchronicity, the show of might, the modern weapons. This is a show that modern warfare is shifting from the old American maritime dominated warfare to a new modern warfare of drones, missiles, air defense. We are being left behind, and Trump's reaction is a show. Trump's reaction shows that he is very worried. However, the American people are also worried because our military is not supposed to be used for these wars of aggression. And indeed, the recent event where our military fired on a boat leaving the shores of Venezuela, it was a speedboat with 11 people on board. Our military blew them out of the water, and then Trump showed the videotape on social media. This is a crime for the American military. The military is not supposed to be used for drug interdiction. This is a law enforcement function. There was no due process. We do not know that those were drug runners on the boat. We are now hearing that they were not Tren de Aragua, who are human traffickers, not drug traffickers. So Trump changing the name of the department to the Department of War, the strike this week on perhaps an innocent Venezuelan boat with the military might, and our aggression in Lebanon. We are now saying we are going to create an economic zone in Lebanon protected by the American military. This is spiraling out of control. It is unsustainable. Trump will get pushback.
Right. Furthermore, Ms. Chapman, critics argue that that this narrative, or this fuels narratives in China and Russia that portray the U.S. as aggressive and imperial. How do you agree that this could really play into their propaganda?
Yes, and China, Russia, Iran, they are correct to be worried about this new aggressive stance. And this new aggressive stance is because our diplomacy is failing. Trump is supposed to be a businessman, art of the deal. However, his transactional nature is ignoring that we need political solutions. Not every solution is a military solution. And indeed, the it's almost a distraction to say that the Department of Defense is now the Department of War, because the real risk is not our belligerence, our blustering, our sending warships to the South China Sea. It is our stealth operations. So even as we are looking and pointing at our military, we see that in areas like Azerbaijan, our CIA is active there, in cahoots with MI6 and with Mossad to engage in stealth operations to disrupt Iran on their northern border. We are engaged in stealth operations with our allies in order to weaken our allies for American purposes. And Trump is severely misguided. He believes that just by announcing economic zones, this will provide a cover for our military aggression and also for our stealth CIA, Mossad, MI6 aggression. We are trying to actively undermine China's Belt and Road initiatives. We are sowing unrest in Azerbaijan, Armenia, in order to undermine our adversaries in
Yes.
ways they're not expecting while they're looking at our military expansion.